section 10.3. This is using the properties that we learned before about multiplying polynomials together. Now we're going to have three interesting situations that arise that allow us to use a shortcut. So the first situation is when we're taking the sum and difference of the same binomial, the same two terms in the binomial. So notice, like, I actually skip to this example right there. Here we have 3m minus 5, and then over here we have the exact same thing, 3m and 5, but now we're adding them. So our first term and second term in each of these binomials are the same, but one has a minus, one has a plus. Generically, it looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and FOIL this. This is what we've learned to do before. I'm going to distribute the 3m to each of the terms over there, and that gives, that gives me 9m squared plus 15m. And now I'll distribute the negative 5 to each of the terms over here. So negative 5 times 3m is negative 15m, then minus 25. So remember, now we look to combine like terms, and we can combine the 15m and the negative 15m. We combine them because they both have m. They both have the same ending or are like terms. So we add the coefficients together. So 15 plus negative 15, or 15 minus 15, is 0m. There's 0m, so we don't need to write that down. So we'll bring down our m squareds that we couldn't combine anywhere, and we'll bring down our negative 25 that we couldn't combine with anything. And this is, folks, our final answer. So the shortcut is, when you have two binomials that are being multiplied together, and they're exactly the same, except for one has a plus and one has a minus, really we can really just take that first term and square it. And we can take the second term and we ignore the sign. We'll just take whatever the second value is right here and we'll square it. And then we put a minus sign in between. So really, 3m, that quantity squared, when we square the 3 and square the m, we get 9. And we get m squared. And then we subtract, there's always a minus sign here, whatever this second term is squared. So 5 squared is 25. So 9m squared minus 25. Let's try it here. So instead of doing all of the multiplication, let's try to use this shortcut. So I'm going to square the first term, that's x squared, and I'm going to square the second term. 4 squared is 16, and then I put a minus sign. And that is correct. What we're missing here is the 4x and the negative 4x. Well, when we combine those, we get 0x's. So there is a 0x in here as well, but we don't need to write it down. It got eliminated. All right, let's take a look at what happens when we have two terms that are being added. So that makes it a binomial, and then we square that. Here's our shortcut. So to not shortcut it, you could expand this. X plus 5 times x plus 5. Let's try this shortcut instead. The shortcut says when I'm squaring the sum of a binomial that has addition into it, so I'm squaring this binomial with addition, I take the first term, which is they're calling a, and I square it. So here that would be x. So I'm going to square that. I'm going to skip this middle part for a second. I'm going to go to the back. I take the second term and I square that. And I add whatever that is. So I'm going to add 25. 5 squared is 25. Now how do we get this thing in the middle? I'm going to take the first term times the second term. This says a times b. So I'm going to take x times 5. That gives me 5x. But then I multiply that by 2. That gives me 10x. And really, when I multiply here, this gives me x squared, right there. And when I multiply here, that gives me 25. And when I multiply the inside, I get 5x, and when I multiply the outside, I get 5x, which makes 10x. So really, just using this shortcut gets straight to the answer. Let's try that one more time. I square the first term, so 2x squared is 4x squared. At the back, I'm going to do this same color coding. I'm going to do that in red just for fun, for giggles. So I get 4x squared. At the back, I take the second term and I square that, and I'll put that at the end. So 3 squared is 9. In the middle, I'm going to take the two terms, the first term and the second term, and multiply them together. That's what it says right there. So 2x times 3 is 6x. So hold on to that 6x right now, because then I double that. Times that by 2. 6x times 2, or multiplied with 2, is 12x. And I have plus signs in between them each, it says here in the rule. So yes, folks, that is accurate. I'll prove it to you here in a second. But if you're like, I don't need you to memorize this shortcut. You use your notes right now on the practice that we'll do here in a bit. And on the test, I'll put it on the board. So there's 4x squared. If I use the cute color coding, there's 4x squared, my first term and my final answer. Here's 9, my last term and my final answer. And here's 6x. And there is 6x. 6x and 6x is 12x. Here's the last thing. It looks the same as what we were just doing, right? Except for now it's a subtraction sign with the binomials. So here the rule says I take the first term and I square it in my shortcut answer. So I'm going to take x and square it. And at the end, I'm going to take the last term. Now we ignore the sign. We're just going to take this and square it. So I'm going to take the 2 and square it. That gets me 4, and it says to put a plus sign in front of it. In the middle, I'm going to take the two terms and multiply them together. So I'm going to take x times 2. Again, I'm ignoring this minus sign there. I know usually we need to pay attention to it. I'm going to ignore it. So x times 2 is 2x, and then I double that. So that's 4x. Now I do need to put a minus sign in front of that. So how does that work out? Let's expand this and just double check. We get x minus 2 times x minus 2. Here we get x squared, boom. In the back, when we do the last, we get negative 2 times negative 2. That's a positive 4. Then in the middle, we would get a negative 2x, and on the outside, we get a negative 2x. Hey, that equals negative 4x. Beautiful. Let's do it one last time. So, square this term right here. You get 4x squared. Square the last term. 4 squared is 16. In the middle, it says to multiply the two terms together and then double that. So 2x times 4 is 8x. 8x doubled is 16x. And then we put a subtraction sign in front of that. And we put a plus sign in front of that last term squared. Bada bing, bada boom.